Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Dark Matters Network. Today, I have with me Nikki Brown, who directs the amazing Canine Angel. Nikki is a wealth of knowledge and experience in healing, understanding, and communicating with our most beloved furry companions. We are more than honoured to have Nikki join the network. Our animals and the health of our animals, I have to say, is something very close to my heart. And just as we have been completely lied to about the truth of our own health, so we have been lied to about theirs. As we begin to bring all of this to light as a collective, we can also begin to lovingly re educate ourselves on animal health, animal nutrition, and beyond. And I firmly believe that when we walk in truth, kindness, and sovereignty for ourselves and one another, we must also, in protection, walk that walk and give that voice to our animals also. Nikki, thank you so much for being here and joining us today.
Oh, hello, Carly. It's just such a pleasure to be here. And what a beautiful introduction. I've had a few interviews in my time, and I think that one resonated with me the most because it is really about speaking up for these animals and being a voice for them. And that's what where my passion lies, and what I've always tried to be here. One was to uncover what's actually going on in the animal industry, and two, to see what the problems were, find some solutions, but to bring that truth and that awareness to people out there so that they can make informed decisions on what's the best course of action for them and their animals. So it's just so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me here, and so wonderful to be part of your Dark Matter space as well. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck in with you.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, isn't it? I know we had a chat a couple of weeks ago and we ended up talking for a couple of hours, didn't we? Because I find it super interesting, so super fascinating. And like you say, I've got such a soft spot for animals that I think they're the closest thing to God, and dog is God backwards, isn't it? So they
Yes.
have this purity to them and they teach us so much, and we can individuate their consciousness as much as they teach us as well. And like you said then, it's moving away from that industry, isn't it? And that pet industry, and
Mhm.
reconnecting with our animals. And like I say, just in relation to nutrition, we've been lied to. I mean, the pet food industry, we'll probably touch on that. Is just an absolute
Mhm.
horror, isn't it? And like you
Yeah.
say, they can't talk for themselves. I mean, they do communicate with us, and it's learning the language, isn't it? Of course, which have obviously you become very proficient at. And I've always had animals, but it's the same with children, isn't it? It's protecting that innocence and that purity. And I'm very passionate about that. So I'm super excited to have you in the network because we've come up with about 100 projects and ideas where we can try and get this information out. But how did you get started, Nikki? What was kind of your turning point or your kind of key moment where you thought, wow, this is what I want to do? What kind of got you to that point?
Well, it goes back to my first dog. He was called Jake. I was only 15. I'd asked my mum for a dog all my life. Mum, can I have a dog? Mum, can I have a dog? And it was no, 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 no for 15 years. And it took me 15 years to manifest this dog. But this little dog came running into my life and literally he ran past me. I was sat there with my friend. We were just chatting on a step in town. He ran out in front of me and he ran into the road. And this car came along, screeched his brakes on, nearly hit it, missed this dog by about this much, wound his window down and started shouting at me, "Can't you keep your effing dog under control?" And I was like, "It's not my dog." Anyway, he drove off and this little dog came and sat at my feet and looked up at me. And I looked down at him and we bonded. And he followed me all the way home. It was a 3 mile walk home. And I knocked on the door and I was like, "Mum, look, I got a dog." And she was like, "Oh," and I put him in and he was sniffing around on the kitchen floor. And my mum sat down and she said, we can't keep him. And he was a clever little dog. He came and he got climbed up on her lap and he put his little nose under her armpit and went to sleep. And she had like this little baby Jack Russell in her arms, like, oh. And he obviously
Oh,
melted her heart. And with lots of talking and convincing, I managed to get my mum to say, yes, we can keep him. He
wow.
was he was the most affectionate, loving, funny, amazing dog at home. But oh my God, took him outside in the outside world and he turned into the devil dog. And he would attack other dogs, anything that moved. It didn't matter how big they were. He was proper little Jack Russell. Rah, rah, rah. And all I had was other pet parents screaming at me, "Can't you keep your dog under control?" And I used to go home in tears and say, what are you doing? And back then, I didn't know what I know now. I was 15 and I loved him. You know, you couldn't fault the love that I had from him, but I didn't have the knowledge. So I went to the vet, I went to the pet shop, I went to the so-called professionals. The
Mm.
vet told me to roll a newspaper up and smack him on the nose. The pet shop told me to buy a choke chain and choke him, you know, and I was just, something in my head said this is not right. This is not the way we should be dealing with this problem. I've got a severely aggressive dog here, and being aggressive towards him is not going to help. But this was the advice, and this advice is still being handed out today. And that was
Mm.
what, well, 40 years ago. So we've still got people out. Thankfully, we have got more education in that time and better and new kind of ways are coming forward. But yeah, fast forward a year and a half later, the only way I could deal with this problem was to take him out late at night and let him off the lead then when there was no other dogs around. And one
Mm.
fateful night I did that, let him off the lead. And he must have gone off and chased a cat or something. And the next thing I knew, he was gone for about 20 minutes, came back, and he laid at my feet. And it was pitch black and I couldn't see what was going on, but I knew there was something wrong with him. Scooped him up in my arms, ran home. And when I got to the front door and the light was on, I could see he was covered in blood. And I rushed him down to the vet, still not really knowing what's going on, but he was screaming at this point. He was in so much pain. And the vet sort of did some checks over and it did some internal x-rays. And he said, looks like he's been hit by a car and his rib cage had punctured his lung and his whole chest cavity was full of blood. And he died in the vets the next day without me there. I was only
Oh,
16. Turned my world upside down.
you have
You
me
know,
crying. I'm already hormonal.
oh, it was because obviously the day I found him, I saved him from getting run over. And here I was a year and a half later, and I hadn't saved him from getting run over. He was obviously destined to get hit by a car, this dog, right?
Yeah, there's some fate going on there. Wow.
Definitely. Um, and I took it upon myself that I was the worst pet owner in the world. And I felt really guilty because I was like, if I'd known how to solve this problem, this wouldn't have happened and this dog would be alive today. And I vowed never to get another dog again. I just shut down completely. And about 8 years later, I still have this passion and this love for dogs, right? Because it's in my blood. In my past life, I was a dog. I've had past life readings and I was a dog, right? Just for the fun of it out there for those people who are into past lives. So I'll come into this life as a human now, still with dog past.
Breed dog. What breed were you? What breed of dog were you, do you think?
I was told that I was a golden Labrador, and I actually ended up I had an old man as my human. He died, and I ended up going into the rescue centre system and
Oh,
dying in the
killing
rescue
me now.
system. So, this then correlates to why I started studying, which I'll come on to, which I basically 8 years later, I thought, I want to get another dog. But I thought,
Oh,
I want to know what I'm doing this time. I want to know. So I opened this magazine and there was a dog psychology course, home study course. There's £500 and I didn't really have £500, but I just knew that I had to do this course. So I sent off, got the home study course, opened it up, started studying it. And it was like, do this with your dog and do that with your dog. And I was thinking, I haven't got a dog. Where can I get a dog from? So I then volunteered with the local dogs shelters and I just started walking dogs and observing them and trying to study them and then that whole journey then took me around the world. studying and working and volunteering in animal sanctuaries. I worked in several of the dog trust animal sanctuaries in this country. Then I went over to America and I found Best Friends, which wasn't part of my journey. I'd gone out to America for a 3-month trip and literally stumbled across this place. I got lost, and getting lost got me to this it's America's largest no-kill animal sanctuary called Best Friends. And I went in there and just said, I'm an animal healer. Have you got any animals that need healing? And they said, all of them. Just go and start on all of them. Anyway, this place changed my life, and it's all in my book, all about, what happened at Best Friends. But I came back from there and I decided to finish my course in dog psychology, and then I took up human psychology at evening school. So I studied the human side of psychology as well. During all of that time as well, I'd been diagnosed in my early 20s with stage 4 cervical cancer, and I had to go on my own health journey to heal myself. And I took up diet and nutrition study and got into raw diets for myself, and spiritual healing, and that's a whole nother story. So I was starting to learn all of these natural healing methods. How can I put them all together and what can I create? And what I saw really in the rescue centres, because I worked in rescue centres in New Zealand as well, was there was a specific problem. And that was that all of these dogs were coming into the rescue centre and getting processed pet food, veterinary drugs, not the right education, and then they were being rehomed. And the pet parents were then taken on rescue dogs and not being able to deal with their problems. So the dogs would end up coming back into the rescue centres, and the rescue centres really are under so much stress out there because they're following old protocols. And I obviously could see a new protocol developing, and I thought, well, if we could do this, this, and this, it's going to have such a knock-on effect with the amount of animals that are coming into these places. I mean, in Battersea Dog Home, there's about a third of the dogs that go into there in the year are just euthanized on the spot. There's just not enough space for these animals. They don't know how to fix the problems. They're too costly to fix. So all of these animals all over the world, some of the lucky ones are getting into rescue centres, but the unlucky ones are being euthanized because problems weren't being solved and they become too costly to fix. So that was where I started wanting to develop a protocol to help these dogs and to rehabilitate rescue dogs that have got severe problems, get them out of the shelter, come and get rehabilitated with me, go through my protocol, and then they would stay out of the rescue system. But not only would they stay out of the rescue system, they would stay out of the pet industry system as well, and just go back to their natural ways. And that was really how my program started developing all of those years ago.
Wow, what a story. I was half crying through something. Oh, no. This is why I always say people who work with animals is just wow, because I'd be a mess, I'd be a wreck, I'd just be crying all the time in a ball. It takes such strength, and people think I'm strong with perhaps what I do, but wow, honestly, honestly, I really admire. And what a story, and like you say, it's treating the root of it, isn't it, rather than the symptoms and that
Mm.
root cause of it, just like it is with us that we're starting to learn, there's a reason why there's harm in pharma, isn't there, in
Yes.
pharmaceuticals. And it's the same for our animals, that we've been conditioned to respect authority, to trust the people in the white coats, the people that are coming with the drugs, right? And again, same with us. There's no profit in cures, is there? And they get our animals sick from the offset, and that's with the the pet jabs, shall we say, the jibber jabs, the
Mm,
vaccinations of the animals. Let's
mm,
just say it.
mm,
And it's the
mm.
same with us. So we're taking our puppies, aren't we? Our kittens, our animals to these people that are injecting them again with what, and then that's causing, I would imagine, and I'm no expert, so we'll pass this one over to you, and get into this root cause of then that's causing a lot of diseases, and then the food, the pet food, like you say, it's an industry. The whole thing's an industry. It's cyclical and it feeds itself just in the way that it does with us. So yeah, well, what's your experience been with that? I mean, like you said, you yourself got cancer, like, and you healed yourself, I'm guessing, again with just, knowledge and nutrition and understanding of how the human body really works. And we're all starting to learn more that we are these frequency beings. And I know you do bioresonance therapy as well on the animals, which again I find absolutely, fascinating, interesting. I keep threatening to go for bioresonance therapy myself, and I am going to do it. There's a lady in Manchester who's going to do me a scan because it's just fascinating stuff. So could you tell us a little bit more about that? What your thoughts are on the, the pet vaxes, and
Mm.
how that does kind of, feed this kind of industry, and maybe touch a little bit on the bioresonance and how that works for them, like I say, to
Sure,
create the program.
sure. Well, the first thing I noticed when I started my business, Canine Angel, was every, I would go in and I would assess. My first point of call is to assess the problem. I do an assessment call, 90 minutes, 2 hours, come in and we'll really deep dive into what's going on with your animal. And what I was noticing was a pattern. These dogs had all had a vaccine, a jibby jab. They'd all had processed pet food and they'd all had these flea and worm treatments. And it was this concoction that was sending, I could see patterns start emerging of health and behavioural problems appearing a couple of months after these protocols had been given to the dog or to the cat. So if we have a look at the Royal Veterinary Association, they work with the pet food companies, and like a vet who goes to vet school
Yeah.
will perhaps get like half a day's training on pet diet and nutrition, and the information that's provided to them is provided by the pet food companies. Now, the pet food companies, you've got all the big, like Mars, Nestle, Procter and Gamble. I mean, Procter and Gamble are a cleaning company, and yet they make pet foods. You've got the confectionery, the big sugar confectionery companies making the pet foods, and then you've got Hills, which is the veterinary formulas who do the Royal Canines and those kind of brands. But when you start looking at the ingredients to these foods and you start looking them up, there's many of them that are very highly toxic, have been banned off the human food list for being carcinogenic. E1110, which is sunlight yellow, for instance, in one of the top pet food brands, the one that's in the coloured box with all the coloured biscuits and stuff. So when
It
I
looks great.
started,
Sorry,
yeah,
not to
they
interrupt.
make it all look good for us.
That's how we react in it, to the colours and the pretty
Yeah.
shapes and the nice happy pictures of dogs, and we go,
No,
"Ooh,
yeah.
that's got to be good, right?" Sorry, continue.
But nobody looks at the ingredients. Now, the other thing is the pet food companies do not have to legally tell us exactly what's in the pet food, not like human food. There are no regulations that say, I mean, they'll use very loose terms like cereals. Well, what cereals? Is it wheat? Is it maize? Is it grain? Is it rice? Is it GMO? Is it non-GMO? What just cereals is, and then they'll use the term like animal derivatives. Well, what are, most people who read animal derivatives have no idea what animal derivatives are. But if you actually look into what animal derivatives are, there's a good video on YouTube, which is in my book. I put the link to the video in my book, What Your Dog Is Begging For. And it's somebody who's taken a hidden camera, and they go and collect all the dead bodies from the vets or the dogs and cats, and they take them to a food rendering plant, and there's piles and piles of dead dogs and cats. all been
Mm.
euthanized, have all got disease, and it shows you they get put into a grinder and they're just ground up into this sludge. And then it's that sludge is sent off to the pet food companies, and then they put wheat and grain and other bits in it, and colours and sugars and everything to hide the taste. But animal derivatives is crushed up cats and dogs and roadkill and stuff that's not fit for human consumption. So yeah, when you actually start breaking down the ingredient listing that they do show you on the foods, you suddenly start thinking, well, this is where the dog's problems are coming from. Now, the other thing is not a lot of people know, but pet foods are tested on animals in labs, and they will get a beagle and they'll be like, well, how much dried food can we get in this beagle before it has a heart attack or before its stomach bloats and twists and dies, you know? So these pet food brands that we're constantly pouring into our bowls are doing all this horrible, horrible testing on animals. And again, you know, until you uncover these truths, you're just in the supermarket or in the pet shop buying these pretty bags and pouring it in and not even thinking twice of, you know, when I say to my clients, I get a biscuit and I hold it up and I go, do you know what's in that? And they look at it and they go, no. And I'm like, well, it's time to educate yourselves. Because once you educate yourself what's in that and that's going in there, you want to put it in the bin, right? You're ready to put that in the bin. My training is all about, well, what do dogs and cats eat in the wild? They're carnivores. They've got a set of teeth, they've got a set of claws, and these are their tools. And we're putting these foods, these processed pet foods in a bowl, and they're going,
Undone,
and they're
yeah.
not using their teeth or their claws properly. They're not using their digestive systems properly. You know, when a dog actually or a cat kills its prey, uses its claws to catch the prey, it uses its canines to pierce the jugular, kill it. That's what it's got its big canines for. And then its back teeth are used to chomp the bones. Now, what did we do? What did we do as humans? Because of the pet industry told us, is we stopped, we took the bone content out of the dog and cat's food, daily diet. And what did we give them instead? We gave them plastic toys and bones. Now they're chewing
Yeah.
on plastic, toxic plastic. And again, there's no regulations to dog toys. There is for baby toys, because babies are going to put these toys in their mouth. Absolutely zero regulations on dog toys. I mean, most people don't know about tennis balls. Tennis balls are
Yeah.
thrown it for the dogs. Tennis balls are highly toxic and classed as hazardous goods when they're shipped around the world because they contain so much lead, glue, and poison, and this is constantly going in the dog's mouth, giving them kidney problems, liver problems. I mean, through, you know, I've learned all of this through the bioresonance because we take a hair sample of the dog and we can tell exactly what's going on, what poisons and toxins are in the body. And it's led me to study where all these things come from. I mean, we had a dog, just as an instance here, it showed up loads of newspaper dye in its results, in its bioresonance results. And I said to my client, I said, is your dog coming into contact with newspaper? And she said, yeah. She said, when we put him in the back crate in the car and, you know, when we go out for a walk, he chews up all the paper. He was ingesting all this newspaper. So I said, well, we'll get
Wow.
rid of the newspaper and let's put a blanket in there. You know, we can start removing toxicity out of the dog's life quite simply. But yeah, going back to the food, this then, you know, I studied from a vet. He's called Dr. Tom Lonsdale. He's a Sydney vet he's out in Sydney. Now he went and did his 5-year course with the Royal Veterinary College, passed his exams, then as a young student, 21, you know, in his early 20s, went out to Sydney, opened his vet practice, and he was getting all these animals coming on his table, and he could see that they were getting mouth rot. Every single one of them had this mouth rot, tooth decay. I mean, even Pedigree Chum will tell you 4 out of 5 dogs have got tooth decay. Yes, you're giving
Yeah.
it to them.
I,
So anyway, he went back to the Royal Veterinary College and said to them, what you're teaching us at school is not right. These dogs should be on their species appropriate diet, which is raw meat, raw bone, raw ruffle. And the Veterinary Association basically told him if he didn't shut his mouth, he'd get struck off and he was to go away quietly. Well, he didn't go away quietly, and he went and spent the next 40 years writing his books, Work Wonders and Raw Meaty Bones, Dr. Tom Lonsdale. They're excellent books to read. They're a good follow-on from my book because they're really quite in-depth. And I studied from him. So I studied from a vet, but he was a holistic vet, and he was a vet with some sense, with some education. And this is what I say, actually the vets out there who are still telling people that raw feeding is dangerous are uneducated vets. That's what they
Yeah.
are. The vets that are out there that are promoting raw feeding are educated vets. They've taken their study they've taken whatever they've learned at vet school, but then they've gone and done extra study and not just sticking to what they were told at vet school. But yeah, this then led me into what else are the Veterinary Association hiding? And I'd learned through my own health journey the harmer in pharma. And how, the ingredients that they're actually putting in these drugs are causing the symptoms that they're supposed to be treating. When you look at the secondary side effects of these drugs, they cause, if you take a seizure drug, well, the secondary side effect of these ingredients in the drug are they cause seizure. You start working it out and going, well, this is just a big scam and a big con. So what's actually happening is the pet food companies are working with the veterinary associations who are working with the pharmaceutical companies who are working with the pet insurance companies, and all four companies, they're all linked together and they're all making billions of pounds out of making our animals sick.
Yeah.
And I've had hundreds, thousands of clients over the last 15 years who have been to the vet, have just spent thousands of pounds with the vet. The animals got sicker. They come to me, spend a bit of money, spend a bit of time with me. Dog gets better, and they all say to me, "Wish we'd found you sooner, Nikki,"
Yeah.
because all of this stuff is common sense. It's not rocket science for the human brain to work out, but we've been so brainwashed. You can't, I mean, when you think about it, right, before Tesco's, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention them, but the big supermarkets and the big pet stores came out with all these brightly coloured packets and stuff. What was we doing? Our shopping habits would be we would go to the butchers, and then we'd go to the bakers, and then we'd go to the grocers. And we would go into the butchers and we were getting those bones for our dogs. We were getting bits for the dogs. Then our shopping habits changed, and suddenly we got these big superstores and we've got these pet aisles and all these boxes and pretty things. And if you're going to buy some food for your dog, forget the pet aisle in the supermarket. Go down the meat aisle. That's their food aisle, not these biscuits and human grade foods. I mean, again, humans have forgot that we are the only species on the planet that I know of that can build a fire. Every other
Mm.
species on the planet kills and eats each other raw. And that's
Mm.
how Mother Nature designed our animals internally to eat each other. So when we cook foods for animals, we're actually really putting a lot of strain on their pancreas, because the pancreas is the organ that lets out the digestive enzymes. And Mother Nature have given them the organ, the digestive enzymes to break down raw food, not these cooked foods. This is why so many dogs are dying at early age of pancreatitis, liver, gut problems. I mean, it all stems from the gut. It's not just that, it's the behavioral problems as well, because if you all of these foods are so high in sugar, and even wheat converts into sugar in the body, you may as well it's like giving a child a packet of Smarties. Then 10 minutes later saying, now sit down and focus on me and concentrate. The kid's like, well, I want to go out and play and scream. And it's the same with dogs, you give them this processed pet food, and within 20 minutes, they're biting, they're chewing, they're barking, and you're like screaming at them and you're like, what's wrong with them? And you haven't
Yeah.
linked it back to the food. Whereas when you give a dog a raw meaty bone, it'll sit there and chew on it. All of that serotonin goes in and the dopamine chemicals go in because they're chewing. You've got all of the right digestive juices and enzymes going. You've got a whole body workout. They're using their teeth, their claws, and like it goes in and it takes hours and all their energy goes into their digestive system and they sleep like little babies. And you can have a really peaceful day, I
It's
mean,
like it's common sense in it, and it's been
yeah.
lost generally, hasn't it? I mean, like literally like the with us all, and it is getting back to nature. That's what I've said recently, like looking at Clown World and the clown show. As much as we kind of all go, oh, they're doing this, I'm like that with it now. Like it is about remembering and this knowing and going back. We've just forgot to trust ourselves, haven't we? We've lost this connection to talking about guts, our gut feelings, like just like you say, just common sense. A canine has canines, a cat will hunt and eat, and raw obviously is the best for them. I remember I had a Westie called Mr. Lou. There's a picture of him here. And it was a beautiful dog, great little fella. He came with me everywhere. And I was young, I was 19, so I did the thing, you take the puppy to the vets and they get the shots. And I mean, and he was fine. I think, and we'll perhaps touch on boosters and what a con and awful
We'll talk
load
about
of
that.
nonsense that is. Ugh. But I bought him the best pet food on the market. You think you're doing your best, and again, like you say, it's just a lack of knowledge. And and really, he told me, I got him these like pedigree pouches, like they're all nice and shiny, and the adverts are all great. And I was putting it down for him, and in the end, not straight away, but he'd go up to it and he'd go and walk off. And I started to think, hang on a minute, like he'd rather go hungry than eat what I'm putting. That's and it started to click, because I'm a fairly less logical then when I was 19. I was smart enough to go, something's not quite right. And of course, in the age of information that we're in now, I always say, ignorance is a choice. So we just got the internet. I'm showing my age now, but we had dial-up. So I kind of went and so, 2 hours later just to research one thing. But and oh my God, I started to research what's in pet food, and I was like, horror. I found videos because YouTube had just become a thing then, or around then anyway. But anyway, I found these videos, and again, it was of these euthanized pets being put back into the pet food, and of course, they euthanized the pets with a drug. Dogs were dying from me, and I saw them on this conveyor belt. But I was, oh, the horror, the horror, and
Oh,
I had a meltdown, and that was that. I just went, oh my God. And we're all programmed just as we've all been programmed to do other stuff. So, Mr. Lou then was on, he got chicken and rice. Probably the best I knew then because I didn't know about raw then either.
yes, yeah.
So it was a huge learning curve for me. So it's what I tend to say to people about anything. I have full compassion for people who just don't know really. It's
Mm,
even with what's happened to us with the and the
mm,
jabs can't go, "Ew, you're an idiot," or
mm,
we all didn't know, and it is this
yeah.
illumination that's kind of, we're
Mm,
starting to, yeah, it's all starting to get illuminated, and there's a huge difference between science, like you were saying about the vets, like a good vet to a bad vet, shall we say. But
mm.
there's the science with the dollar sign, isn't there? And then there's actual science. That it's not that all science is bad or whack. It's just that the dollar sign science is, like you say, it's a vicious cycle. The
Mm.
vets are in league with the food companies are in league with the and the beat
The
goes on.
farmer and the insurance and
Insurance, of
I mean,
course, yeah.
if you actually, and I've done this with many, many clients over the years, when you take step one, the processed pet food out of the dog, everything
Yeah.
changes and everything goes into balance. And you really don't need to see the vet. You don't need the drugs and you don't claim on your pet insurance, that the rest of it falls away. And
Yeah.
through learning, if I got another animal from start now, I would rather put money into a bank account than giving pet insurance my money, because actually when it came to my last dog, I'd been plowing all this money into pet insurance. So when it came to her end of life, they didn't pay out a penny. I'd
Yeah.
plowed about 10 grand into them, you know, and I thought I could have paid for her medical bills and her euthanization and probably had a holiday for myself to get over the grief. So yeah, it's looking my whole education is to help pet parents, especially the ones that come to me have had horrendous vet bills. I mean, £20,000 or something, and the dog's in a mess, and they've come and spent a couple of grand with me, and we got the dog better. And when you look at the difference, it's incredible. And as you say, like, why didn't I come and find you? But we've all been there. And I'm I've been there, with my first dog. I was giving him the
Yeah.
cheapest tins of chappy. I was giving him them coloured biscuits from the pet shop. He had a horrible skin condition. He was aggressive. I see why now, right? But I had to go and learn all these things myself. And it wasn't till my last dog, Annie, my racing greyhound, came to me, and she came to me. She was about to be euthanized. She was another severely aggressive dog, this time with humans. She'd bit over 10 people. Anybody entering her kennel, she was biting them. I mean, she was an absolute mess. Now, I wrote to all the dogs' homes in the country and said, I'm a dog psychologist, animal healer. I want your worst case, your most aggressive, the one that's about to be euthanized. I want it. I want to bring it out, rehabilitate it, and then I'm going to do
Works.
my work on it and get her a new home. And within 5 minutes, I got a call from the Greyhound Trust, said, we've got this dog called Annie here. And I was gobsmacked because thought I'd have to wait a couple of weeks to get a dog or something. Within 10 minutes, I was in my car because she actually happened to be 5 minutes down the road from me in her
Wow.
racing trainer. She was destined to come. Anyway, when I got her out of this horrendous place, I mean, it was absolutely horrendous. It was an old cow shed, two dogs to a kennel. That all they had was newspaper. They were all smoking fags in this place. It was full of cigarette smoke. It was an old, damp cow shed, basically being converted, and this was her racing kennels. She'd lived like this on newspaper for 4 years. She had scars all over her face where she'd been in fights with dogs. She was in an absolute mess, and they brought her out with this little pink muzzle on. And I opened my car door, and she just said to me, took your time, didn't you? She started communicating with me straight away. Anyway, she just got in the car, and I drove off, and I parked up, and I mean, all I knew was this dog was severely aggressive and had bit loads of people. But I just took her muzzle off and I threw it on the floor, and I said, you will never need that again. I'm here to look after you. You've not had anybody look after you for 4 years. Well, I am here to look after you. You are not here to look after me. I said, let's get that straight. Because that's another thing the humans do. They get dogs to look after them. And dogs are no more intelligent than a 3-year-old child. We wouldn't put a 3-year-old child in charge of anything to do with us. It's too stressful for them. And this is why a lot of dogs have a lot of behavioral problems, because the human puts too much pressure on them. Anyway, she just sat there on the back seat and looked at me with these big doughy eyes. And she basically had the worst case of mouth rot I'd ever seen in my life. She had gut rot. Her poo was coming out yellow the other end. And at this stage when she came in, I'd only just started reading and learning about raw feeding. I hadn't done it. And I was, I was vegetarian then. I'm vegan now. Raw meat, raw bones. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
but I understood my dog was a carnivore. It's not a vegan, right? It's got a set of teeth and it's a predator and it needs raw meat, raw bones, isn't it? I'm not to put my own vegan beliefs onto if I want a vegan animal, I need to get a rabbit or a horse or something, right? Don't get a cat or a dog if you're a vegan and you
Boom.
you know these vegan foods for cat and dogs, don't get me started there, but it's not
Mm.
right. They need raw meat, raw bone, raw offal. That's how Mother Nature designed them. And if you're a vegan, proper vegan, you'll be following Mother Nature's laws, not man-made vegan laws.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
sure.
anyway, coming back to Annie, she taught me all about the raw diet. So she took me through the process, and then I ended up teaching my clients about it, passing on to my clients. And then I was getting so many questions coming through. I thought I'll just write a little PDF that I can send out to people, answer their questions. I mean, in 4 weeks, I had a book. It's my first book
Right.
fell out of me, and it's called What Your Dog is Begging For. It's on my website. And it's a
Cool.
full step-by-step training manual on how to switch your dog from processed pet food diet onto a raw diet, because there's a stage that you need to do to cleanse the dog first. You should always
Mm.
cleanse your diet, fast, detox before you switch your diet, even if you're human. Most people
Mm.
just start this raw feeding journey and they're mixing raw with processed, and the pancreas is going, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I sending enzymes out for raw food or cooked food? And people can
Yeah.
cause a lot more digestive issues for not studying properly. You know, I took the time to study from the world's best, Dr. Tom Lonsdale, you know, I took the study. Annie then taught me everything I need to know. I had to make a few mistakes, a few trial and errors here and there, but she taught me everything. And together, me and Annie wrote the book. I had a client yesterday who has got two dogs. She read my book within 2 to 3 hours. She phoned me up and she just said, "That is the most fantastic read I've ever read in my life." She said, "Absolutely opened my eyes up to everything." It's a real truth book. It's no nonsense. I speak the truth in the book. It's about 10, 11 years old now, the book, but it's helped clients all over the world. So I do suggest to anyone watching that who wants to get that sort of study, go and have a look at the book, or you can book in for one-to-one training through me, through the Dark Matters. Me and Carly are going to sort that out so you can book me for private sessions through here. So, but going back to vaccines, jibby jabs for animals. I mean, the research that I've done through bioresonance therapy, and again, I've been working with bioresonance therapy for 12, 13 years now. And over that time, I've seen hundreds of dogs and I've seen their results. And I've also seen their vet results, because I always get a copy of the vet results. And that study in itself, just looking at all these vet results, you can see the pattern. And I could see a pattern emerging, and these pups or these dogs were having these jabs. And then anywhere 3 to 6 months later, they were getting an ear infection or a digestive problem, or something was breaking down in them. And of course, you know, you're not linking it to the jibby jab because that was months ago. But it was really clear to see this pattern emerging on every single vet report, every single, I was 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months. So I then, again, with the bioresonance, you get a list of all of the virals, all of the viruses that are within the animal. And when I started looking them up, they were patents that are sold by the pharmaceutical company. They're what goes into these vaccines, these viruses. So now, I mean, you know, let's talk about jabs, boosters. At the moment, they brought in mandatory vaccination for pets back in 2016, and there was a big movement at that time with a lady called Catherine O'Driscoll. She had a big movement, and again, I was working with her. There was a lot of us sort of in the raw feeding movement, really sort of advocating about these vaccines, trying to spread as much awareness as we could back then, because we knew that they wanted to bring in these mandatory vaccines for the animals to get everybody into used to mandatory vaccines. So when the human ones came in 2020, we'd all be a bit more conditioned, programmed to
Mm.
go, oh, let's go and get our mandatory vaccine because we've been doing it with our animals. I mean, there's been so much study done. There's a great vet called Dr. Chris Day. There's some good studies that he's done against vaccines and homeopathic no-sows. Homeopathic no-sows are sort of the homeopathic version of the vaccines. All right. And he'd done the studies, and there's another I've got a little vaccine insert again if anybody wants to read that. It's part of my training, part of my course, but I've done a lot of study. There was another study done by Dr. Todd, um, Dr. Todd, oh, what was his name? Tooney, Looney or Tooney, I've forgotten now. It's in my thing. But he showed actually in his study, they took two groups and they vaccinated one for parvo, one group with parvo and one not, and then
Yeah.
subjected the dogs to an area of parvo, and all the ones that were vaccinated against parvo got parvo, and all the ones that weren't didn't. So his study
Funny.
is quite an interesting one as well. So, and then again, if you look at the World Veterinary Association, they actually suggest that every 3 years would be the right time to vaccinate. But again, these yearly boosters have come in just really to make some extra money. So what I do is I educate, because I'm not here to tell you whether you should or you shouldn't vaccinate. That has to be your personal choice. But what I'd like to be able to do is give you the information that the vets aren't going to give you. They're not going to tell you. I'd like to be able to give people the study and the information. So, ask your vet, can I have a full list of the ingredients of this vaccine? And then what I want is a full list of the reported side effects of each of those ingredients, not the actual vaccine name. Because when we go and search the vaccine name, you've got some data related to that name. But when you actually start looking at the ingredients of the vaccine, there's a lot more data of reported side effects for each of those ingredients to the FDA, because they have to publish this information. Now, again, I've done a lot of study on the rabies vaccine. If you go onto Google, it will tell you how safe these vaccines are. They've been stringently tested, they're safe, they've reduced the rabies around the world. When you read it on Google, you think, oh, this is a good vaccine, it's okay. But when you actually look at the vaccine insert and you go down and reported side effects of these vaccines include and you look up those, you see so many dogs with these symptoms of what's going on with these vaccines. So again,
Yeah.
when you ask for the vaccine insert and you do the research and you go in to do and actually look at these things, you can start tracing it back to these lumps that these dogs are getting, and the vets will say, oh, they're just fatty lumps. They're not, they're edemas. And you can link them back to, I'll link them back to, it's the bovine serum that they put in these, which comes from the cows. So I've done so much research into this over the last 14, 15 years that, I'm at a point where I was vaccine damaged as a child, okay? At age 12, I was rushed into hospital, 109 degrees. I had a massive rash. Doctors even took pictures of me. They had no idea what it was. And that was all off the sugar cube with the polio.
Yeah.
Now that, when I was 12, was a significant life event. I nearly died. I was in hospital. It was horrendous to go through. Now, the doctor actually did a test and he said I was allergic to penicillin. He injected a load of penicillin into my wrist and my arm blew up. But my whole immune system was kaput. So whatever he injected into me, I would have been allergic to. So he put it down to a penicillin allergy, but I know it was like 2 or 3 weeks after I'd had that sugar cube, I got really, really sick. So that led me into natural medicines, homeopathy, looking at these jabs, because I had actually been damaged myself. And I can honestly say, hands on heart, when I trace back to all my clients, they all trace back to these jabs. They've all got the toxicity, the aluminium, the formaldehyde, the viruses, the contaminants. It all shows up in these animals. So when
Wow.
I mean, for me, as I say, I cannot tell you whether to vaccinate your animals or not. That has to be your choice. But let's look at the kind of safer ways to protect the immune system and strengthen the immune system. Let's get them on a raw food diet. Let's get them some fulvic minerals. That's another one of my things. Let's get them
Yeah.
some homeopathic noses. Let's get them some frequency medicine. All of these are much kinder, safer methods that my clients have all really loved these solutions, and the dogs haven't got sick. And it's the way forward, really. You've just got to really educate yourselves and ask the questions to the vets. If a vet wants to prescribe a drug to you, ask him, what are the ingredients of these drugs? Can I have a full list of the ingredients? And I want a full list of the side effects. The vet will probably turn around, and I've had this in my own experience, and he just says, oh yes, it's a very harsh drug. And I said, no, you're not answering my question. I want a full list of ingredients. You're just about to give this to this dog. I want to
Yeah.
know. Well, and the vet turned around to me and he said, why are you questioning me? He said, 99% of my clients just trust what I say. And I said, well, meet the 1% who's going to ask you
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
tell me what you're about to put into my dog. I've got every right to know what you're about to put into my dog and what the possible side effects are. Because if those possible side effects show up as symptoms, I'll know it was the drug and it's not something else. So it's about informing yourself with the right education.
Yeah. Wow. I'm just like, I could listen to you for hours, honestly. I'm just like, this is like my favorite, I think, interview ever. I'm just like mesmerized, honestly. I'm seriously.
I
And
could talk forever.
it's like I really cried about 3 times. Oh, this is like I think we've said, haven't we, that we could perhaps create some notes, some useful notices for people. And like you said, Nikki, we're not here to tell anybody what to do. Right? That's definitely not a
No.
thing that we do on the network. It's an educational
Yeah.
resource platform basically, and it's for people just to be, like I say, just to be more informed and know that there are other options. It's not medical advice for your pets in any way, shape, or form. But like you, and I did a Carly Decode's Climb World yesterday, and I was saying about how I kind of started at the beginning of the pandemic by saying, the only way you can get a virus is if it is injected into you. And like you said, with the parvo, that trial, the dogs that had it injected into them had it, and the ones that didn't. And it's kind of as simple as that. And we've lost this ability to just use our common sense, me
Yeah.
included historically, because we have been so heavily programmed and so heavily brainwashed by, like you say, that full-on cycle of that industry, and we trust the people in the white coats, and these people, and it's nothing against vets or doctors. Again, they are taught this, and
Yeah.
they are taught it from school to college to uni, and then they go and that's what they teach. Same with our doctors, who were all funded, and that industry was created by the Rockefellers back in the early 1900s. So that there's only one side of the tale being told, and as we know, we are kind of in this time of great reveal. And like I said in the intro, this kind of this illumination that we're all doing as a collective, and that we're shining on in on ourselves. Hopefully we can reflect that to our, and we love our animals, don't we? We're a nation of animal lovers in
Mm.
theory. And I know there's some people that, and I can't stand any form of animal cruelty. I find it abhorrent. Just as the same, like I said in the intro, with our children, if we're not standing out and speaking up for them and giving them that voice, then what are we doing? But we've been in the dark ourselves, and like I say, historically, I'll include myself in that as well. And I find it absolutely fascinating, as we said.
Well,
So
I've always
back
said
to the
if
cat
we,
food. Yeah, sorry, go on.
sorry, just about that. If you actually asked your dog, do you want
Yeah,
a vaccine? Do you want a microchip? Do you want this bowl of kibble? Really, what would they say? Would they
That's what
go,
I
yeah,
used to.
please, I'm lining up for that. Yeah, go on, stick that in me. They would say, no, thanks, I don't want any of that.
It's
I
awful,
mean,
isn't it? Because I was a dog walker and a dog sitter, and I know I told you this, Nikki. Some people might know this, and I ran a business called Paws Patrol for years, and I loved it. And I had all my little, like we were saying, you get your pack, and I go out with them a couple of times a day, and I would do dog sitting for people going on holiday, and it would break my heart. But it's kind of not for me. I tried to educate in a polite way, but bring it these biscuits of Baker's Complete, and like you say, it might look all, and people don't know. And because that industry, we're bombarded with it. This is the best for your dog. It's for the nutritions. I used to say, right, take a Rivita, right? Imagine it's like fortified with every vitamin and mineral that your body needs, right? But that's it. You're going to live on that for the rest of your life. Like, would is that what
mm,
you would choose? Is that what you'd want? And I used to make people eat their own dogs dog food, and they go, "Ugh," I go, and they go, yeah, but dogs, they have less taste buds than us. And I said, yeah, but we taste through our noses, and dogs' noses are way more advanced. So I said, like, it doesn't make, I tried to kind of educate, like, in the best way that I knew how. But even then, I do know raw's best. But I would honestly, I used to spend more money, Nikki, buying copious amounts of chicken thighs for all the dogs, like, and I'd cook them, so my bad. But it better than what they kind of came with, and
oh,
like
totally better than the pet
sardines and
food.
fish, and they'd all go nuts for it. And because I couldn't cook, because that's what I fed Ron, and he has like all fresh food, he has all fresh meat, but I couldn't for shame. I just so I think I spent the money I made dog sitting and dog walking. I spent most of it on all my guests and stuff like coming, because I just
Um,
and a lot of the dogs, like you say, were starving. Because there's no real nutrition in this wheat-based, sugary, like I said,
um,
it just expands in the stomach. They might feel full for eating some crap fast food or something. You might feel full for a while, but it's just the worst thing that you could be doing.
it's
And an
not,
hour later, you're starving again. And they were running
it's
around
exactly.
trying to find food all the time. And I thought, it's not
Exactly. It's not
wrong.
just about what they put into these things, it's what they leave out. Because I've always
Yeah,
said, there's three things. If there's any disease or imbalances within the body, in the mind, in the soul, or the spirit, there's three things that we need to look at. There's too much toxicity, deficiencies, and
yeah.
stress. All three things will break your immune system down. And your immune system was given to you to protect you, not just from internal viruses, bacteria, anything, but even energetic. If our immune system is strong, we can cope with the 5G uh, frequencies. We can cope with psychic attacks. Our body is so amazing. My work is all about strengthening the immune system. I've
Mm.
often said if I was any part, if me, Nikki Brown, was any part of the body, I'd be the immune system. I'm there to attack the invaders,
The
any
teeth.
external threats coming in, like vets with jabs, boosters. I'm like, you're an external threat. I'm the immune system. I'm going to go, not having you, right? So I like to see myself as the immune system. It's quite funny. But yeah, I mean, in a raw bone, there's 26 vital nutrients. Now,
Mm.
if you take that bone out of the dog's diet and you give them a plastic chew, not only are you putting all that plastic toxicity in there, but you're not putting those 26 vital nutrients in. Uh, Mineral deficiencies and vitamin deficiencies are huge. I mean, we
With
know,
us, isn't it?
yeah, we know if we're depressed, we're deficient in magnesium and phosphorus, It's the same for dogs. It's the same for animals. If we are
Yeah.
not, because the thing is as pet parents, we've got to look at what our animals' needs are and ask ourselves, are we providing for their needs? Now, by putting a bowl of kibble down, we are providing their needs to be fed, right?
Mm.
But can we do a bit better than that in providing their needs? What is actually their needs? They don't actually need that kibble, right? They need the raw meat, the raw bone, and the raw offal. That is providing their needs. And when you're in a relationship with anybody or anything, if your needs are not being met by yourself and the other person, you're gonna have a word with them, right? You're gonna say,
Yeah.
hey. You're not providing me what I need here. Same if you were in work and a boss, you're working like a Trojan and the boss isn't paying you, your needs aren't being met. You're gonna say, hey. So these dogs that are going around starting biting people, they're going, hey, I
I'm
want the
hungry.
bones. I want some bones, man. Where are my bones? It's the biggest crime we
Like,
committed.
it's
It's
mad,
the
and it is criminal. It literally is criminal.
crime.
I can't stand it for animals. I can't stand it.
We
Please,
did
everybody.
it then.
If there's going to be a
We
campaign started, we're going to start it because I'm fully in me because it is just it's like I say, it's education. It's I didn't know we all not known. There's no kind of like no one's bad on this one apart from those that have done it that do know really and do it for profit, do it for greed.
think about it as well like this, right? The predators were put on the planet, the wolves, the
Bill Gates.
bears, the tigers, the lions, because they can consume bones, right? They have a stomach pH of 1, pH 1. Our stomach acid is pH 4, right? They have the acidity to break down bones. Now, if we didn't have predators on the planet, there'd be mountains and mountains of carcasses and bones everywhere. Right? But think about what Mother Nature's done. She's put the predators on the planet to eat the bones for the digestive system to break them down, and then they poo out. And what comes out is the white crumbly dog poo we used to see years ago.
Yeah, true
That
enough. You
that
don't see it, do you?
demineralizes our topsoils. Our topsoils are so mineral deficient and toxicated because we're not putting, you think about the farm animals as well. They're getting all this GMO wheat and grains. They're not getting their proper species appropriate diet. They're getting man-made pet food. Their poop that comes out, the poop that comes out of a dog who's on processed pet food, is stinky, it's toxic, it's dangerous. And then we wrap it in plastic, put it in a plastic bag, and then we put it in
Gonna get me off
landfill.
this planet. It's just like driving
What
me.
are we doing? When we put a raw meaty bone into the dog and it comes out in this like powdery poo. You can literally pick it up and it doesn't smell. It's healthy. And I say to people, please don't put that in a plastic bag and put it in the bin. And they're like, what? Because we've been brainwashed to pick up our dog's poo. Absolutely pick it up if it's that toxic. If you're putting processed pet food in this way and it's coming out the other way, you've got to pick that stuff up because it's dangerous for the topsoil. It's dangerous for other animals, humans, and everything because we put dangerous food inside them. But we don't go and pick up the bird's poo or the wildlife poo, do we? Because they're eating their species appropriate diet, their natural diet. So their poo is actually good for the planet. So again, it's not just thinking I'm helping my dog here. You're helping your dog, you're helping your wallet, you're helping your stress levels because the dog's not going to get sick and go to the vets, but you're putting the health back into the topsoil. And
Yeah.
we could have a whole nother conversation about soil. And
Yeah.
we've got like 10, 15 years left before we're not going to be able to grow any food in our soil. So it's really, really important that we start cleaning up our internal selves and our animals by getting the right foods in us, the right foods in our animals, and clean it. Because when we clean this up, everything outside of us is going to clean up and the planet will get healthy. We've got to stop looking out there and blaming out there. We've got to start with ourselves and
Yeah.
clean up, detox, get the good foods. Stop putting the rubbish harmers into your body because they all come out as well. What goes in has to come out. And you got all of them viruses they're injecting into people. It's all got to come back out, you know.
Back, isn't it? It's like you say, just listening to you, I'm just going, ah. It's just like we've just it's got to come back, hasn't it? Like you say, we've got Bill Gates trying to block out the sun. The try, like you say, the where we used to go, like you say, the way we used to shop, the way my nana, I would bring my nana in. I remember going shopping with my nana. She'd have a basket. She'd go to the butchers, like you say. She'd go to the bakers, and you would ask for the offcuts, wouldn't you, and the bones and stuff for the dog, and it was, and again that removal of the middle classes, that removal, that's what they did with you must close your businesses, that to destroy that really, so that we have got these huge. I said when I was in my early 20s, and I didn't know nowhere near as much as I kind of know now, and I still don't know anything, but I said one day this place will be one big giant Tesco. Everyone will be in Tesco uniforms, and they're all bowing down and worship the entity that is Tesco. And I said it like flippantly and joking because I was very into David Icke at the time, but I was like, look at where we are. It's that corp I can never say that corptocracy, we're ruled by
Mm,
corporations. Like
mm,
you say, going back to nature, like you said, look to nature, look how a lion eats, look how animals, how the birds eat. They're eating
mm.
like you say, their appropriate, nature driven diet, just as kind of we should look into what we should be doing. And I remember, like, and I mentioned him yesterday, our Junus Planets. Have you heard of him? Our Junus Planets. He talked about the primal diet, and he actually showed how we can eat raw meat like that. And actually, yeah, raw meat that had worms in it and everything. He showed that it doesn't have our guts. Well, that's a different story. We won't go there because I don't know enough about that. But it was just like super interesting.
Yeah.
And this was very, he knew that the only way to, get viruses is to, inject them into you. But like you
Mm.
say, it's kind of going back to, yeah, just remembering, isn't it? And
It's
that
just,
this has been
it's
absolutely
common
amazing. Yeah.
sense. Everything I've said is just awakening that part of the brain that goes, oh yeah, I know this. And it's not
Mm.
even arguable or debatable because it's actually what it
Quite
is. And
simple,
it's
isn't it?
so
Yeah.
simple. And yet, I
Mm.
say to all my clients, just let's start today. Because you start thinking, oh, if only I'd known that, if I'd known all of this when I had my little Jake, I might have saved his life, right? But I didn't. I had to go through that experience. I had to get a really severely damaged dog with Annie so I could heal her and she could show me what to do. So I always say to my clients, when you've got these problems come up to you, you suddenly got a dog that's suddenly having epileptic fits or seizures or digestive or it's got cancer or tumor coming or anything. It's an opportunity to learn. It's a
Yeah.
really sad way to learn, but my goodness, you're going to learn. You're going to
Yeah.
learn about all sorts. And these animal spirits, they really, I communicate with animals and on a global scale. They want to help us humans. They so
Yeah.
do. That's what they're here for, right? They're
Yeah. We've not
unconditional love. And but they
about
want
we.
us to listen to them. And if you can't, if you're not an animal communicator and you look at a lion, you think, well, I have no idea what he's saying. Just observe, like you say, watch what he's doing, how he's eating, what's he doing, how, what can I learn from the lion? What can I learn from my dog? What can I learn from my cat? I mean, domesticated cats are most of them so much luckier because they can still go out and do their hunting, but the domesticated dogs have become slaves to what we put in their bowl. And we've domesticated them and we've taken off that role of hunting from them. And it's massive because their whole instinct is to hunt. So the
Mm.
least we can do, I mean, providing them with a bowl of kibble and we've taken all that off them, the least we can do is at least give them the kill to chew on, to chomp on, to eat, even if we're not going to let them kill it themselves. I mean, I remember sitting on a hill once and I watched a guy and he had about 7 or 8 whippets and he was right over the other side of the valley. But I just watched him let his whippets go and it was like on a rabbit warren and they just caught their own rabbits, net their own rabbits and off he went. It was nature.
Yeah.
It's a bit people don't want to go, oh, it's a bit
Yeah.
squeamish, but
It
you
is,
know,
isn't it? Nature of this
even
place
if you
anyway. It's
stuck
great, isn't
on
it?
even if you just stuck, I've said this, even if you just stuck your dog on raw chicken wings for the rest of its life, it's raw
Yeah.
meat and it's raw bone and a bit of offal, a bit of chicken heart or something. It would be so much better than this twice a day
It,
biscuit in their bowl.
I I have to say, even price wise, people I think sometimes steer clear of that way of eating because they think it's more expensive, or but it's not, is it? I
Mm.
mean, you can get very, very cheap, dog food, which is absolute, you might as well just not feed them. But it's kind of like, yeah, if you do it smartly, and I've found, you can, and you bulk kind of do it, and you can, yeah, you might have to invest in a big freezer type of thing, don't you? Like the raw
Yeah.
feeders and that, but it actually can work out cheaper as well, and that's kind of another message. But
I've got
I mean, we
I've
touched
got a
on that,
whole
but
chapter in my book about how to save money. And I mean, I actually did, I worked out that with Annie, she came with a big bag of the, it said best Greyhound mix. And I looked at it and it smelt like cardboard. And this was the stuff that was coming out yellow, the other end, bright yellow. And I was like, there's something not right with this. And it was this big sack that really made me get into what is in this, you know?
yeah,
Um, but I added up. You see, if you've got the cost of the biscuit food, you've then got the treats, you've
the
then got
vet
the
visits,
toys and the bones, you've then got the shampoos because they stink, you've then got the horrible poo bags, you've then got the vet visits, you've then got the behavioural visits. I mean, it is extortionately expensive, right?
yeah,
Let's take away, let's just look at the bag of pet food, right? I worked out it would have been cost me £1,500 to feed my big greyhound on that dried food, those sacks, all right? And it was pretty cheap stuff. It wasn't like the most expensive stuff. I
yeah,
fed her
yeah.
for a year from my butcher's. I was so lucky I had a butcher's come and open next door to me,
Right.
literally on my doorstep. And I used to be able to go and I used to get bones for free. They'd give me all their cut-offs and bones. So I got quite a bit for free. But I added up, I kept all my receipts and I added up over the years £750, exactly half to put my dog on
Mm,
his raw food diet. Now, the other
yeah,
thing was because of this really bad tooth decay and mouth rot she had, this was the thing that actually made me put her on a raw diet. I took her to the vet. And the vet took a look in her mouth and he said, "Oh, I don't know. I don't think she's in that much pain." And I looked at him and I thought, you really should not be calling yourself a vet. And I thought, she's not in pain. She's in horrendous pain. And then
oh,
he said, well, we could take some of them out. I said, well, how
to
much
be
is that
honest,
going to cost me? And he quoted 5 grand for me to
wow,
get my dog's teeth sorted, right? And I remember walking out of there and I thought, because I'd learned from Dr. Tom Lonsdale that when they start chewing on their own raw meat bones, cleans the teeth, heals their
yeah,
gut, heals their mouth, heals everything, right? So I thought, well, let's give that a go.
yeah,
And I saved myself that 5 grand, and Annie died with all of her teeth and a healthy mouth. We cleaned up all of her mouth, all of her gut, everything. I mean, her transformation is in my book, so you can read all about it. There's another 5 grand I saved myself just by going to the butchers.
yeah,
You know,
wow,
so
and
when I say I can save you money, I'll seriously can save you money with your pet care bills. That's what my whole point is, because I would
yeah,
rather that the money that you've earned and you've spent goes on people like myself who are running a very small business, who need that income to keep helping dogs. Because I always say, when somebody comes to me, well, the last dog paid for me to still be here to help you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's the way it works. Don't go and give your money to all these big corporations, these big veterinary corporations. Go and seek out some natural holistic practitioners and start spending your money with them, because they are so much more clued up. Even if you don't come to me, there's plenty of natural healing animal practitioners out there. Go and talk to them when you've got a health problem. Don't go to the vet straight away. Go and talk to them first, because they're going to give
yeah,
you a protocol that's going to work and is going to be 10 times as cheaper and not come with side effects. Of course, your
yeah,
veterinary association, your veterinary people are there, but when you need surgery, when something really serious is going to happen. Sorry, it's a
wasn't
knock
it?
on the door.
Yeah, But
But come and see it. Sorry, I've got to go and answer the door. Give me 1 second.
oh no, no worries, love. Well, I'll carry on talking. So it's like Nikki was saying with the nutrition, isn't it? That the vets only get 1 day on nutrition. It's the same with our doctors. They get taught for 5 minutes about nutrition. It's interesting, if you go to the doctors, they don't even ask you about diet anymore. It's just drugs, 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 and some more drugs. I think we've got it back.
Sorry, that was the postman.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll probably round it up anyway because I think we've not even really, touched on the kind of more spiritual kind of communication side. So maybe you'd come back and do a part two, and we can kind of
Yes,
dive into
yeah,
that as well because that's just yeah, again, super fascinating. And I always, from the law of one, we individuate their consciousness with the love we and the care that we give them. But of
yeah,
course, they give us so much back. But like you say, the animals are trying to communicate with us as well, and they're here to help and protect and love us as well. And we just have
yeah.
that symbiosis with them, and it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But thank you so much, Nikki. Honestly, I could literally talk to you all day about this. I just it's something so close to my heart, and if people do want to find more out from Nikki's in the network. There's Nikki's consultations if you wanted to book a consultation, but there's loads of information in your space in the network as well, and we'll put a link to your book below. I didn't realize about the book, so to get a copy myself and have a good read of it. But it sounds well, it is fascinating. So thank you so much, Nikki, for spending some time with us today. Honestly, like I said, I've nearly cried about 3 or 4 times. Like I could never work with
Yeah.
animals. So what I think what you do is it's just so beautiful. It really is, and it just emanates from you, it shines from you, and it flows out of you, and it's like I say, it's beautiful to listen to you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It is my passion, absolute passion, and I could talk about it forever. But
Yeah,
yes, please, anybody wants to contact me through yourselves, and we can talk and have a look at some solutions.
brilliant.
So
Okay, thanks.
thank you, Carly, and I look forward to part two.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely have to do that part because it's just super fascinating. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.